the push by the United States to weaponize the dollar, the idea that the United States has that it can impose its value and its policies on other countries, however virtuous those values might be, has met with resistance in other countries. And I think that there's a worldwide push to look for at least bilateral mediums of exchange outside the US dollar, so that people whose policies don't conform with US expectation can operate in terms of exchanges outside the SWIFT banking system. The Chinese, the Brazilians, the Saudis, the Russians, the Indians, the Turks. There's a whole bunch of people in the world that have ideas that run inconsistently with US policy, and they're sick of 25 years of weaponization of the US dollar. The unsung truth in all of that is, as much as they might dislike us, or as much as they might distrust us, historically they dislike and distrust each other more. So the idea that, as an example, they're going to be able to form their own currency, or there's going to be substantial exchange and saving in other currencies, is probably wrong. The US dollar will continue, I believe, to be the primary medium of exchange, but I suspect that you will begin to see more and more trade, bilateral trade, take place in gold. The second thing that I think you need to
amongst those BRIC nations you mentioned?
Beyond the BRIC nations. Yes, the BRIC nations, but beyond the BRIC nations. The other thing you have to note is that historically those countries would hold their reserves in U.S. treasuries, the deepest and most liquid market in the world. The Treasury put, the idea that interest rates would continue to decline so that the capitalized value of the distributions of the bond would increase, are over. People understand that. And the arithmetic around the U.S. 10-year Treasury is lousy. It favors gold. If you buy the U.S. 10-year Treasury, the government pays you 3.5% in a currency where the government itself acknowledges that the purchasing power is deteriorating by 7%. Why would the Chinese, if they're afraid of going to war with the United States, lend the United States $2 trillion with the explicit promise that they would lose 3.5% a year? It isn't even good arithmetic.
Makes a lot of sense. Just some more thoughts on the BRICS, since South Africa is hosting, the next big event, and more countries are looking to belong to the BRICS. So we obviously see them growing in power. And like you say, are they just playing nice, but you're saying that there's no trust really between any of them? So is that why the US probably is not fearing it yet?
I know that there's very little trust. Not that they trust us or should trust us particularly, but the idea as an example of a common BRICS currency reminds me of a wonderful Doug Casey quote. Doug Casey described the dollar as an I owe you nothing. He described the euro as a who owes you nothing, because there were 17 backers of it. I suspect that a BRICS currency would be a no one owes you nothing. If you look at the financial stability, if you look at the balance sheet and the income statement of the nations that would be behind the BRICS currency, but with the possible exception of China, and we don't know enough about their internal banking system, given its opaqueness, as out of whack as the U.S. economy is relative to the U.S. Treasury, that consolidation of countries known as the BRICS is in even worse condition. While I think they wish that they could conduct common economic policy outside the U.S. dollar zone, I don't think anybody, including themselves, believes that their currency, with their current fiscal policies, is viable.
You just made me remember another point I wanted to bring up with you, because I've seen you active on social media correcting people or trying to explain it. So I want to give you a platform here to do so. There's obviously a lot of people reading the articles that Iran, Russia are looking at, a gold-backed currency. And you wrote in one post, please understand that this stable coin will be denominated in gold, not redeemable for gold. So if you can just explain a little bit more, Rick, about why it's important to understand the difference here.
Well, Daniela, it's hugely important. The people who are posting on media are taking at face value suggestions that there would be a central bank digital currency or some other form of electronic medium that is gold denominated, which is to say it wasn't tied to the ruble, the renminbi, or the dollar. They are mistakenly saying that it's backed by gold, which is to say that the issuer of that coin, say Russia,
right,
would have 100% backing. In other words, that the coin itself would represent physical gold. That's wrong. The proposition is a fractional reserve system. I would suggest to you that if you are the holder of such a thing, that you are an unsecured creditor of Russia or China. And I would invite you to attempt to perfect your security, which is to say, go to Moscow and try to trade your coin for physical gold. You will see the difference between backed and denominated. And thank you for the opportunity of a commercial. When we formed the Sprott Physical Gold Trust, one of the things we did was make it redeemable for gold. That is what backed means. Backed means that the medium of exchange, the synthetic medium of exchange, be it paper or electronic, is backed completely by gold and preferably redeemable.